Frank's Red Hot is the perfect blend of flavor and heat, so you can use an entire bottle to make recipes like buffalo chicken dip or buffalo nachos, or even things that don't start with buffalo. Frank's Red Hot, I put that on everything.
Hey, Craig!
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
This is a basketball episode. We're only talking about basketball. If you're here to hear about football, fuck
That's
off.
Right.
This is basketball.
It is basketball season. We finally made it.
Finally. This is why Jeff and I do this. Basketball. Let's go. And basketball is fun. This is Podcast versus Everyone, episode 158. I'm Craig Powers. With me, as always, is Jeff Nusser. Jeff, after another successful basketball weekend with one of the biggest basketball weekends the biggest in over a decade coming up, how are you feeling?
Yeah. Dude, I am so fired up. I am so pumped. And if the traffic on our website is any indication, we are in the minority.
Yeah, come on. I mean, obviously, any of y'all that listen to this, probably go to the site. But
yes.
Well, after signing day, whew,
yeah.
People just checked out. But
yeah.
Hey, hopefully they're checking in for
I hope so.
This weekend.
It is funny though, you and I having, written for the site for a very long time at this point, we joke about, football is what moves the needle, right? Like people are, and this is not, we're not throwing shade. So please don't, misinterpret this. We're not throwing shade. It's just that football is what moves the needle. People really, 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 really care about football. They care about basketball in so much as the team is really good, which, over the course of WCU's history has been very rarely. So there's just not a real big, basketball following, even though this team is really good. They also have some, head scratching losses if you don't really know that much about the teams they were playing, so you scratch your head and go, oh my God, how'd they lose to South Dakota State? Oh my God, how'd they lose to New Mexico State? Well, those are two top 100 teams. They're pretty decent. Barely lost to them. Oh my God, how'd they lose to Boise State? Well, Boise State right now is ranked 30th in KenPom. That's a damn good team. So, it's the casual fan goes, oh, well, the team must not be very good because they're losing to teams like that. And the reality is they actually are very good. And this is very exciting. And Thursday's game against Arizona is absolutely huge, to the point that, the team right now is on Joe Lunardi's next 4 out, which is pretty remarkable, considering all of those things. But they've started to pile up wins, which has put them back on that bubble radar. That was something that I said a few weeks ago when I wrote my Monday after. I was like, hey, if they head into Arizona having won, 6 of 7 or 6 of 8 or something like that, they'll be in, pretty darn good shape to be back in the bubble conversation. And, well, here we are. They lost to Colorado. They lost to Stanford, but they won, 6 other games. And lo and behold, they're in that conversation again. And, so many people were so convinced that, oh my God, their hopes are dead. They lost to Boise State. Their hopes are dead. It's over. They have to win the conference tournament in order to get in. And I'm like, man, y'all don't realize how many teams 68 is. That's a lot of damn teams to get in that tournament. And they are very squarely back in the conversation, having done what they've done. And now they've got a huge opportunity.
Yeah, and before we get to that opportunity, let's talk about how they got here this weekend, sweeping the Bay Area for the first time since 1993.
Woo! Woo!
That is, I was not yet 8 years old when they did that. So
1993. So the spring of 1993, I would have been a sophomore in high school. So
yeah,
that was a long time ago.
So obviously that, the level of Cal and Stanford were different in those years, but still, the Tony Bennett teams never swept the Bay Area. Klay Thompson never swept the Bay Area. The good Kelvin Sampson teams in the mid '90s. The one that went to the tournament didn't sweep the Bay Area. There's a lot of shitty basketball in between all the rest of that. So,
yeah.
But still, it's a big deal. Winning 2 games on the road in conference play is always tough. That Stanford win was so huge on Thursday because, they built up a big lead, and then they start to let it slip. And then they come back and build the lead again, and they start to let it slip again. And you start to think, maybe they haven't changed. Like, maybe this is the same fucking team. And they're going to do exactly what they did the last time against Stanford. They're going to just blow it.
Yep.
But they didn't let that happen, particularly defensively. They down the stretch, Stanford started hitting shots. But, WSU, they got some stops when Stanford got a little closer. They stopped scoring. They didn't score for the last four, they didn't hit a single field goal after the last 4:16, which would be topped against Cal. But they got enough stops to hold on to the lead. They hang their hat on the defense, and that saved the day, really in both of these games, but down the stretch at least. We can talk about the start of the game against Cal, which was not very good. But yeah, so just to come through, Michael Flowers having a big game against Stanford, 22 points. And you have Mohamed Gay making plays. If he could just make free throws, his stats would always look so much better.
That is no joke, man. Oh, my gosh. We got to fix that. But,
in that game, outside, Noah Williams hits a 3, and that's it. That's all he does offensively. Yakimovsky does almost nothing. Gets 3 shots off after he was a talk. Andy Katz interviewed him. He was just like, people were writing articles about him. Like it was, Andre was the guy. We talked about him at length last week, and then he just comes out and gets shut down by Stanford. But it was great to see DJ Rodman. He's obviously getting healthy again. Getting back in shape because he's able to be himself again. And he had just a really productive 21 minutes, 9 points, 2 boards, and a steal. Hit 4 of his 5 shots. Rodman this year has really improved his interior game. Like, the funny thing is, if you look at Hoop Math, he has not shot a single 2-point jumper this season. But he's shooting a lot more shots at the rim, and he's shooting them very well at a high percentage.
Threes and layups, man.
and he's been able to capitalize on the defense selling out to stop his 3-point shot. And he's got some athleticism. As we saw in this game, when he dunked with his left hand on a dude as he was getting fouled, which they didn't call because
as he got clobbered, smacked his head into the ground.
Like an elbow to the head isn't a foul, even though we have to later in the game spend 5 minutes reviewing a different, less egregious elbow. But it's whatever.
But whatever's the way to approach it.
Yep. They did some, like, it's funny in this one that they only hit 8 of 16 from the free throw line. They still won.
Yeah.
They only got 5 offensive rebounds, only 20% offensive rebounding. Stanford had 43%, 16 offensive rebounds. They still won. Largely because they hit threes, they hit their shots inside. So they're kind of, last year they would only win these games if they dominated the shot, the shot volume.
Yep.
And, we love shot volume, but they're showing they can win in other ways. Yeah. And a lot of it's the interior defense, making it hard for teams to score inside. Although Stanford wasn't that bad, but they just found a way to win this game, and they have shooters, and that's helping. That's helping. They have shooters, so on any given night, you got guys that are Ty and Michael Flowers and even Fa hit one in this game, DJ hit one, Mohamed Gay tried one, which was a sign of things to come, though.
Yeah,
but really, they've been able to win some games while playing Flowers and Roberts together a lot. I think Roberts' defense has improved quite a bit throughout the season. I think he's adjusted to the size of size and speed of Division I. So he's definitely not quite the sort. Now we'll talk about Arizona in a bit with the size of their guards, but Stanford has some big guards too, and he was fine against them. So
it seems like on that defensive note, it seems like what they've really leaned into with the two shorter guards is just really being, for lack of a better word, being a pest, and just getting into people's space. Rather than contesting shots in the traditional way, just sort of getting up into guys' bodies and making them a little uncomfortable. I think their rotations are more on point. Length obviously allows you to recover, right, a little faster and a little more effectively. But it seems like both Flowers and Roberts know a lot better where they're going when they rotate, when they switch, when they scramble, things like that. And so they are able to get close enough to sort of bother shots in a way that they weren't early in the year. So, it just seems like they kind of figured some things out about how – and maybe to me that's sort of like the impressive thing about the defense this year is they're doing it in a bit different way. Obviously, the 2-point defense is still really strong, and that comes from having the big guys near the rim. But some of the other stuff isn't quite the same. And what they've done is they've figured out how to adjust to having different kind of personnel. A lot less. Last year Isaac Bonton was our shortest perimeter player at 6'3", right? So now we're running two guys out there who are both shorter than that. One guy significantly shorter than that, and they've figured out how to do it, which I think is a real credit to the coaching staff that they have figured out. Okay, we got these two guys; they're not real long, but here's how they can be effective defenders. It's sort of an underrated thing, but I think a thing that the coaching staff deserves a ton of credit for.
Well, and I think one important point is when they had some elite looking defenses when they were out of conference in Kyle Smith's first 2 years. But that first year they improved a lot, but they were still only ninth. They still gave 1 point, they were over a point per possession in total in conference play. And then last year they improved. They were still over 1 point per possession in conference play, but they were fourth defensively. So they improved a lot defensively in terms of their peers. But this year they are first in conference play. Now, some of that's a product of they have not played the best teams yet, but they've also played some really fucking good defense against the teams that they should be stopping, and that's really encouraging. Because they're going to need that defense in the next 2 weeks.
Yes, they are.
But so they beat Stanford. That was big, and then it was really avoiding a bad loss at Cal. Cal's without their best player, Andre Kelly. So in that way, the result is a little disappointing, but at the same time, sometimes on that back end of the weekend on a road trip, when you're going for the sweep, you're hoping to get it. And honestly, WSU's still without some guys. Like, they're not totally full either.
Nope.
But they got it together in this one. Obviously, again, they let Cal back into it late. Cal had a chance to tie the game late. They had a 3 and they missed it. WSU went, I think it was like the last 7:30-ish without a field goal in this one. So that's
7:24.
7:24.
The last 7:24.
No
They
field
went
goals.
1 of their last 11, 0 of their last 8 over the last 724. That's bad.
That's bad. That's an issue, especially because it's happening quite often. They're having these lulls. It's become a joke in our Slack where the highlight videos just kind of skip forward to the end all the time.
It's like, look, there's a lead with 7 minutes to go, and then sing the fight song.
Yeah.
Sing the fight song. Yeah, it's I don't know, man. Ask UCLA how it goes trying to get that sweep, right? They end up losing to Arizona State in triple overtime. Oregon damn near loses to Utah. And Utah is, probably every bit as bad as Cal. I mean, it's just, man, it is hard to win on the road in the conference. It just is. And it always has been, and it always will be. To get the win, I don't give a shit how ugly it is. I don't give a shit if it should have been easier. For whatever reason, Cal is just a little bit of a weird, tricky matchup for us. I kind of thought at the beginning of before the first matchup, I was kind of like, I could see how this would be tricky. Cal's experience, they grind it out. They slow you down. They really irritate you by just essentially frustrating you with their pace, right? And that first one kind of proved to be that. I mean, we held them at arm's length most of the game, but we never really ran away with it the way, it sort of feels like we should have. And then same thing with this one. Like, you build a lead and then it kind of slips away and, but that's why you build the lead, right? Is, then you have that, you have that wiggle room. Cal's tough, man. And they're experienced and they play hard and they don't quit. And, obviously that's a credit to them. Not that I'm going to give too much credit for that because you're not supposed to quit, but sometimes there's just a team just sort of plays you well. And after those 2 games against Cal, it just sort of seems like, that's kind of their deal. I mean, Grant Anticevich has, pretty big, doesn't have a huge game overall, but has a pretty big, first, 30 minutes or so, right? Hitting a bunch of threes and just sort of, being the guy that we remember him being 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Just a lot of stuff going on and, and that's okay. I mean, it's, a win is a win is a win is a win on the road.
Especially on the road.
You just take what you can get. You don't worry too much about it. Even though, 4 points doesn't look great, who cares at this point, as we know, thinking about the bubble and the committee.
Ken Pom only had them winning by 5. And so net probably only estimated around that too.
Yep. So you saw very little. It's not like, we ended up going down in the net or Ken Pom because of it. We didn't. We pretty much stayed the same because of it. So, no big deal. Totally take it. It was not a work of art, but who cares? They're not all going to be works of art, and that is okay.
Yeah, and one thing that was positive, obviously Flowers coming in, shooting well from the outside, had a rough inside the arc game, but shooting well from the outside, clutch free throws, and, another 21-point game, so he has 43 points on the trip.
Yeah. FA double-double.
FA, big double-double, an incredible dunk, which he made look like the easiest thing in the world. He also had 4 steals, 2 blocks, and then, Mo with his 10 points.
But wait. You can't be overlooking the 7 of 8 from the free throw line.
7 of 8 from the free throw line. He had some clutch free throws too.
Yep.
And then, Mo, he had 10 points and 3 blocks, 2 steals. It was and then he hit 2 threes.
Yep.
Where'd that come from? Cal's got to be frustrated with that. It was nice to see FA and Gay. I don't know how many times at WSU ever do you just see our front line is so much more athletic than the other front line, and they just completely dominate them.
I don't recall it ever.
Yeah, it was.
When I was in school, it was Mark Hendrickson and Tavares Mack. Mark Hendrickson obviously goes and plays, cup of coffee in the NBA and then pitches in Major League Baseball. Tavares Mack, pretty athletic, but not super athletic guy. Carlos Daniel was pretty athletic, but he was only 6'7".
Yeah.
So this is unlike any pairing in the front court since I've been a Coug, which is, all the way back to 95. It's a long time.
Yeah, and then they've been without their true kind of big, their strong man, who's, fairly athletic on his own ride, and Deshaun Jackson. So one thing that obviously is concerning about this game, this entire weekend, is Noah. 0 of 7. Missed his only free throw, which was a pretty, it was a crucial free throw. It was a 1-and-1, and he missed the front end when he could have basically put the game away. He had 2 turnovers. He did have a couple assists, couple of rebounds, but that's not good.
It's really bad.
The only saving grace, and Mark Sandra wrote about it today in Cougs, Noah, basically, these 2 wins were WSU's first 2 wins of the year when Noah had an offensive rating of less than 85. By the way, he had a 15 offensive rating against Cal, so he just got a little bit of credit for those assists.
1-5.
But yeah, so one thing that helped is, his usage dipped a little bit. We saw him, 27 to 30 pretty consistently earlier in the season. He was leading the team in usage. If he's going to be this ineffective, he cannot have the ball in his hands as much. I know they want him out there for his defense and, his passing, and because he's one of he's basically the only guy that can consistently drive the lane and draw defense, but he's just been so bad at finishing at the rim. That's really left him. He seems to, be more concerned about drawing a foul or something. And I don't know if he's learned, these Pac-12 refs don't really give him the benefit of the doubt ever.
No, they do not.
He's not going to get those calls, but WSU, in this stretch of games, he's going to need to get his act together. He's going to have to hit some shots. He's going to have to play better offensively, because they just can't have this black hole at the 3 or the 2, whatever he's playing at the time, offensively when they're playing these teams coming up.
I do think it helps a ton. So you mentioned that, these 2 games were the first 2 games they've won where he was, quite bad offensively. I think a lot of what's mitigating that right now, 2 things. So you mentioned the usage going down a bit, which definitely helps. But I think the other thing is, F.A. and Muhammad are both coming along offensively. Both of them are becoming legit offensive weapons. And that is something that wasn't the case even a month ago, right? Both of them are coming along. We spend a lot of time talking about how, man, they just seem to struggle so much when they play 2 bigs. And, can they play 2 bigs? Should they maybe be playing 1 big and, 4, it's not really 4 smalls, but your second big is a guy like Yakimovsky, right? Who's, 6'8" and, 230 pounds, but he's not a big, right? So you're like, and so we did a lot of hand wringing over that. Man, the last 3 weeks or so has shown that to be very stupid, or at the very least shown it to be no longer totally relevant, because those 2 guys have become absolute monsters, and not just defensively, but offensively. They are both contributing a ton offensively. And so that mitigates a lot of what's going on if Noah struggles. Obviously, if Noah can produce, then that has the potential to really supercharge the offense, which is a lot of kind of what, Mark was getting at with his post. If he suddenly comes around to being, just average, all of a sudden the offense really, really starts humming. The question is, is it fixable? Is it turnaroundable, which is not really a term, but I just made it up, so now we're going to count it. I'm an English teacher. You can trust me. So much of last year seemed to be predicated on the fact that he could hit a 3. And I'm to my eye, and again, this is a super easy thing for a fan to say and whatever. So, for whatever it's worth, to my eye, his mechanics look really messed up. His shot has never been a textbook jumper. And last year it seemed like, okay, he kind of figured something out with his jumper. There are lots of people with unorthodox jumpers who have been, perfectly adequate shooters. So, I mean, it wasn't something where I was like, oh man, this is just some really fluky hot streak. But at the same time, it was like, okay, I'm kind of looking at it. I'm going, all right, yeah, he gets he's getting his feet square and he's getting his shoulders square and he's got a nice straight follow through. He kind of flicks it, but at the end, sometimes kind of seems to almost kind of pull his hand back at the end instead of stroking all the way through. But okay, it looks okay. It just it looked like the kind of shot that everything kind of needs to be perfect to be repeatable and to be successful over and over again. It just doesn't look like that right now. It looks completely out of whack. His balance looks bad. He doesn't look square to the basket. And when you get in that kind of a funk with your shooting, with your shooting form, it can be really, really, really tough to get out of it. And especially in the middle of a season, that's kind of the thing you rebuild over an off season, which is kind of what he did last year. I don't know how much of that can change this year. Yeah, it's hard and it's frustrating if teams don't really have to guard him at the 3-point line. That definitely makes a difference in terms of his ability to get to the rim, at least, in situations where he's got the ball, maybe isolated. So I don't know, man. Do you think this is fixable, or do you think this is just a matter of saying, hey, just don't take too many shots so you don't kill us?
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say it's fixable in terms of, I don't think he's going to be the same player he was last year, because I don't think he's going to suddenly start hitting 38% from the 3-point line. I do think he can fix the other stuff. I think he can, the at the rim stuff, because he's rebounding offensively better this year than he ever has, and so he's can get opportunities through that. He's not hitting those mid-range floaters. He's not, he's not finishing drives. But he was early. He was finishing the drives earlier in the season.
Yep.
So it's there. He's just in a funk, and if he can just if he's just a little below average, WSU is way better. And then now they've seemed to have moved to Flowers mostly as the go-to type guy. But you see Noah will still kind of take over at times. If he's going to do that, he's got to be able to hit shots. And, he's competitive. I'm sure he's been working his butt off to try to fix this. But it's quite a stark contrast to what he did against Stanford and Cal a season ago. And it's a bummer that it's, you can look at, he scores 72 points in one weekend and scores 3 in this weekend against the same two teams. And that's wild. So yeah, they're going to need more from him, offensively, but they don't need him to be a superstar offensively. They just need him to be someone that needs to be guarded, and someone that puts pressure on the defense, because he has the capability to run the pick and roll better than anyone, even when he's not shooting the 3. He can run the pick and roll better than these other guys because of his height. And and he's a talented passer. He's got good vision. His assist rate has dipped this year a little bit, which is kind of wild because he has better shooters around him. So that's concerning. So he's just in a funk, but he's so competitive, and they have some big games coming up, and I hope that can just kind of fuel him, because he's a guy that really runs on emotion, and these are going to be some emotional games. So hopefully he can meet that, but at the same time, I hope he doesn't feel like he needs to take over, because he just isn't that player that he was last year, because he's not hitting those outside shots. So defenses don't have to give him. He doesn't get that extra quarter of a second of defense, because they have to wait and see if he's going to shoot the 3, right? So it's just but hopefully he can. this Cal game is the rock bottom, right? Like, so it's gotta go up.
God, I hope so. Like, I can't imagine how it gets a whole lot worse from that. I mean, a 15 offensive rating is it's a bit hard to describe how bad that is. Occasionally you'll see someone throw up a 0 in just they'll play like 7 minutes
because they didn't do anything.
They won't take a shot. They won't score. They didn't have an assist, so they'll give you a big fat 0, but it's pretty rare to see someone play, 24 minutes and use 22 or 24% of the possessions and also come up with a 15. So for context, by the way, for people who are like, what all these numbers, I don't even know what they mean. An average offensive rating would be around 100, probably a little over 100 at this point. So that would mean essentially you're producing about 1.0 points per possession when you do something to end a possession. Okay. So 15 is like essentially 85% worse than average, like 85% below average. Like I there's not really a good way to characterize it. It's just, it is really, really, really bad. So, this has got to be rock bottom. I hope he can get it sorted out, man. He's too valuable. Maybe we need to play Washington. I don't know, man. Maybe that was our problem. We didn't play Washington back in December. And so, he wasn't really, prepared to soar for the rest of the season. I'm honestly not sure. So I don't know. I mean, we know he's got it in him, but I don't know.
The rough thing in against Cal too is one, you had Yakumovsky who took 2 shots. So you're not getting much from him. He did hit a 3, but
and he's dealing. We learned he's dealing with an injury.
Yeah, which makes sense, right? And then, but then Bamba, he's really kind of dropped significantly in the rotation.
Also dealing with an injury.
And he had a 21 offensive rating. He was 0 for 2. He had a turnover and assist. So it's. He just didn't do as much bad stuff to the offense as Noah did because he didn't take as many shots. He wasn't having the ball as much. But that's 12 minutes of nothing on offense, and then 24 minutes of nothing on offense from Noah. So that the fact that they won this game with those 2 things is pretty impressive. When you have 2, basically 36 of your 200 minutes are completely non-factors offensively. That's to still win is good. But again, it's crazy. Think back Bamba, the rise he had earlier in the season and where he was just one of arguably our best player for a few games. And, but yeah, it's a bummer these guys are injured. Maybe Noah's battling an injury too, but we know he might just have some conditioning issues still because he missed so much time. He had COVID, he had the flu. Who knows how much time he's missed practicing. So they've had contact tracing. So who knows how much time he missed because of that. Some of these guys just are having some tough luck, and WSU's had, as we've mentioned before, quite a lot of tough luck, but they're still there. They sweat, they won 5 in a row, and now they've set up this huge game against Arizona, which I had planned for months and months to go to. I was going to go all 4 games this weekend, and there's 5 now, but I wasn't going to go to the Wednesday one. But with everything, I'm going to a very close friend's wedding in North Carolina the next week, and I put off the decision as long as I could. I just didn't want to risk catching a stupid COVID virus, Omicron or some shit, and then having to cancel that trip or getting there and not being able to just sit in my hotel room, whatever, for risk of, to avoid exposing others. So I've been just basically quarantining myself inside my house up until that. And so I figured it was incredible, agonized over this decision. And then it becomes this huge game. And I was already agonizing over it before it was even that, because I was just excited about, getting to see 2 men's games, 2 women's games, a huge weekend. But I had to cancel it, which is a bummer. But, I figured I haven't flown on an airplane in over 2 years. I haven't seen my friend who's getting married in like 3 to 4 years. So had to bite the bullet and
Yep.
do that.
Totally couldn't take that chance.
Yeah, didn't want to take that chance. But I hope other people are able to find their way.
I hope other people take that chance.
Well, hope other people don't have like, friends' weddings that you don't want to ruin on the other end of the games. But because it'd be really cool to see Beasley alive again. Mostly, it's really the students. If they show up, that's what creates the atmosphere, the noise, everything. Especially on the weekday games where you're less likely to have,
a lot of people driving
down. Yeah, although I did see, it's pretty tough to get a flight to Pullman. I just checked out of curiosity. It's pretty tough to get a flight to Pullman for this Thursday. So hopefully there's a lot of people on a plane heading to Pullman on Thursday to watch that game. But yeah, this is as big as a game has been. I think probably the famous broken headlight game in Clay's final season. Which had similar stakes. If they, UCLA was not nearly as good as this Arizona team, but they were still, WSU was kind of in the realm where if they got like one more significant win, they might have been in, and UCLA might have provided that. So that was, that's some big stakes.
It is not a stretch to think that one more win would have done the trick.
Yep. So they but obviously Clay didn't play in that game. Castro almost didn't, and then did. So that was probably the last really big game that had consequences like that. But again, that wasn't even against like a top 10 team. Like this, we're talking. So if you want to talk about a game against a top 10 team with stakes, probably you got to go back to Tony Bennett. Maybe they're when they're trying to play in the tournament. Maybe because that NAT team was never really on the bubble, so none of those games. But if you go back to maybe that UCLA game at home early in the, it was in February. I guess it was about around the same time as February 7th. Obviously, we knew that team was going to go to the tournament, but that was more of a just getting a big win. So that was probably the last one that would have had this same sort of excitement. Although that year there was a lot of packed crowds and stuff quite often.
Yeah.
It's so there just hasn't been a game like this. You're talking over 10 years, maybe 15 years.
Yeah.
Since there's been a game like this with these sort of stakes, and that just shows how long it's been.
This good of an opponent too. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, Arizona is really fucking good, and Arizona is going to be a 1 seed. Like, this is a really, really, really good team.
Maybe not if we beat them.
Well, maybe not. This kind of team used to come to Pullman fairly regularly when the Pac-12 was pretty strong. It's been a few years since the Pac-12 has had a team like this. This is a big deal, man. This is such a big deal. And Arizona's rolling. They beat UCLA. They beat USC last weekend. They had to come back to beat Arizona State. Last night, so recording this
easily.
But they had to come back. They were behind early. They had to kind of come back a little bit.
Arizona State, who shoots 29% from three, I believe, hit like 6 of their first 7 threes in that game.
Yeah, I think we should do that. I think we should
do
all of our threes. That's how we're going to win the game. But in all seriousness, look, Arizona's just really good. And this is as good of a team as is going to visit Pullman, definitely this season.
And frankly, this is a huge game for Arizona, too. You're talking about them being a number 1 seed. The knock on them is they don't have the wins to be a number 1 seed. They beat Illinois, but that on the road, and that's their best road win. Outside of that, they have basically the same road wins that WSU has. And so, that Wyoming win is coming through for them at this point. But, Wyoming's improved quite a bit. But this is a chance for them to prove, and they don't have many. They have us, they have Oregon, and those are their last 2 quad 1 games of the year on the schedule. So this is a huge game for them. This is the biggest game left, the best team left on their schedule. Yep. And so this is their this is their Oregon they have at home. So that's not going to be a quad 1 game. So unless Oregon just starts pasting people.
You got to get, I think it's top 30, right?
Top 30. And Oregon's 49.
Top 30 team at home to get a quad 1, which is a totally different conversation.
Yeah. Oregon is 49 right now. So they could get to there by the time they play them, but I hope they don't because WSU plays Oregon in that time.
That's pretty tough.
But yeah, so this is a big game for Arizona. If they want to be a 1 seed, this is one they need to tick.
But are they going to take it as seriously as they should?
I think so.
UCLA, they play USC, they play their rival, right? So that's 3 massive games in a row. And then 2 days later, they're in Pullman.
Now, what I'm hoping is that they're tired.
Yeah. Are they going to buy that Washington State is actually as tough as Washington State is? I guess we're going to learn a little bit about Tommy Lloyd here and his ability to coach and motivate his team, because I look at that and go, yeah, okay, this is a pretty prime letdown spot, man. Just factoring in that they're tired too.
So WSU, KenPom gives them a 30% win probability in this game. So that is crazy against the number 3 team in KenPom. That shows you how much this team. So in the Kyle Smith era, they have won some games where they've been 30% or less, including Oregon last year to start the game, UCLA last year. Let's see where were they at to start the Stanford game? No, Stanford, they were actually, closer to 50. But yeah, UCLA and Oregon last year, they were sub 30%. Oregon 10%, KenPom. They won that game. UCLA, they were right. They were 35%. But Kyle Smith has won games like this where they've been this big of an underdog. And truthfully, it's not that big of an underdog. If you're talking about something happening 30 times out of 100, that's not insane.
That's not
if it happens, that's not crazy.
That's not that crazy. Yep.
But they've won these, Washington his first year, 12%, 12.7% to start the game. What else we got? That Oregon win at home that year. So they've won some big games against teams that they weren't supposed to beat, and they had a low percentage. And frankly, again, this is not that low of a probability. This WSU team is pretty damn good, and that's what makes this again exciting, because it's not just like when USC came to town, number 1 football in 2005, and we're like, oh, maybe we could beat them. It's Haley or whatever. Maybe it was 2004. Yeah, it's 2004. Maybe we can beat them. It's Haley, and then they just come out and paste us because we weren't really good. WSU is good. They're playing their best basketball right now. If you look at Bart Torvik tracks their game scores, most of their best game scores have come, against competition have come in the last 6 or 7 games. And so that's it. They're playing really well, which we hoped they would do this. They would get better throughout the season. There's a lot of new guys. There's a lot of young guys. They're coming together. They're kind of figuring out their identity, who does what, who's expected to do what. Obviously we've got some injuries. Some guys aren't playing well. We've already talked about that. But despite that, this team is getting better, and they're playing really well right now. 31st in KenPom. Or 30th in KenPom right now as we're talking. You said Boise State was earlier. Obviously someone they came at, I think San Francisco had a big loss, which is very good for the bubble. Sorry for Kyle Smith's buddies, but they dropped a ton, and so Boise State and WSU moved up. USC with their narrow win over Pacific in a game I have no idea why they were playing.
Yeah, they rescheduled it from it was a COVID postponement, so they went ahead and played it. I do not know why, but they did. So.
And then USC narrowly won, and so USC is probably not even that game against USC at home that WSU lost. There's very strong possibility it's not going to be even a quad one game anymore on the ledger. Which would have, if they would have won that game, would have been very frustrating. If USC,
yeah, it's pretty close. It's pretty close.
Yeah.
Well, the irony is, had they won it, USC is probably not in the top 30, and then it's not a quad one anyway.
USC was 27 before tonight, so they're definitely dropping out of top.
Probably
30
dropping
with a 4-point win over a home against. I think Pacific is like 250-ish somewhere.
Yeah.
Something real bad. So that just shows the kind of volatility of these things a little bit, and that shows that WSU can improve as they've done. They've really jumped like 25 spots in the net and KenPom because they're playing better. And that's why it's exciting. So let's look. How does WSU win this game? You said it earlier, Jeff. They need to hit threes. Like, they definitely need to hit threes in this game.
All of them, preferably.
Arizona has an insanely good interior defense. Christian Coloco, Tabellis is just
they are
big.
So tall and so long. Like, we love our big men. It's like if our big men were like
30 pounds heavier.
30 pounds heavier and projected to be lottery picks. Like that's what we're facing, man. Like, Coloco is a human eraser.
And they bring Ballo off the bench.
Yeah.
Who's 7 foot,
starting,
260.
He'd be starting for anybody else in the conference, including us. He is a monster. Tubelis is I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, but he's athletic and big and strong and physical. There's a reason why these guys are 5-star prospects, right? Like they bring something to the table that maybe the 4-star prospects don't. Things like ready-made strength and, sort of insane athleticism, F.A. is a great athlete. We know that. Gay is a great athlete. We know that. Coloco is like a great athlete with like 8-foot wingspan. Like, it's just kind of like bonkers what these guys bring to the table.
Well, Coloco is like if Gay was 2 inches taller.
Yes.
Didn't lose any athleticism and was 20 pounds heavier.
Right.
And it was all muscle, just pure muscle.
They are so tough on the interior. I do think a big factor is Deshaun Jackson. And I don't expect that if he plays, so Smith, I guess, said he was 50-50. I don't expect that he'll be great.
He's just got to absorb some fouls, man.
Yes. And the other thing is, I do know that, something we've sort of learned from, talking with our sources, is that the team as a whole is a better rebounding team when he's on the floor, particularly on defense. So he doesn't just eat up space. He's a wide body, who can box guys out, make it tough for other teams to offensive rebound. As we know, that's been a bit of an issue, right? Like, when a team is real good at offensive rebounding, like Stanford, they were able to get in there and get a whole bunch of those. I haven't looked at Arizona's profile, but with their front line, I assume they get a lot of offensive rebounds.
Yep,
so.
They are 8th nationally in offensive rebounding percentage.
Yep. So having Jackson in there to box out and be big, would be really, I think, a big development. And then offensive rebounding wise, we know that we like to offensive rebound. Deshaun again doesn't pull down a ton of offensive rebounds.
And Arizona is not a good defensive. They're about where we are defensive rebounding.
Great. So probably some of it is trying to block shots, which they do a lot.
Which is the same issue that we have.
Deshaun is just real good at even just offensively. He doesn't grab a lot of offensive rebounds, but he gets his hands on a lot of balls and keeps balls alive.
Except this year he has been 11% offensive rebounding percentage.
Maybe that's a little bit of a function of the
he gets his hands on a lot of what, Jeff?
But A lot of balls, Craig, is what I said. He gets his hands on a lot of balls, and I regret nothing. So, yeah, getting him back would I think be, really, really helpful. Other stuff, I'm not really sure.
Even
I
15
think
minutes
foul
from
trouble.
Deshaun.
Yeah, I think foul trouble's the other big thing.
Yeah.
So if Deshaun plays, that's great. If he doesn't, I guarantee part of the scout, if you're Tommy Lloyd, is, be super aggressive. They've got more bigs than we do, and they can just sort of be mega aggressive and, deal with it if they get some fouls called and we get some fouls called, that's a net benefit to them. So I think that's sort of the other major factor, because I really do think it's going to come down to the front court. I watched Arizona play UCLA twice. The first game, Arizona did not take advantage of their size advantage against UCLA and lost. They shot a crap ton of threes and didn't make very many of them. The second time around, they remembered that they have a massive front line that's way more talented than UCLA's, and consequently they end up winning the game. So, hopefully maybe being at home, we benefit from a little bit, friendly whistle, I hope, and that things are maybe a little bit difficult on Arizona in that way.
Yeah. The size across the board worries me. The smallest guy that they're going to play in the rotation is Kurt Kriisa, and he's 6'3", and he's good.
Yes.
He was a high 4-star recruit. He is a freshman. So when I was looking, and then they play Pell Larson, another freshman, and then they'll play Dalen Terry. He's 6'7", so he'll slot in at the 3, and then they'll push Benedict Mathurin to the 2, and Benedict Mathurin is a very athletic 6'6" guy. So they're huge. They're big. They're just big across the board. Now, what I am looking for, the way WSU can hopefully crack some, outside of hitting, they got to hit like 40+% from 3 in this game.
Yeah.
I don't want to be absolute, but I'm sure the coaches are thinking that too. We're going to knock down our threes, because Arizona is going to be tough to score on. And with our playmakers are going to be out, the defender across from them is going to have several inches on them typically. Our Noah, Ty, and Flowers, we're going to have to hit some deep threes. And it would hopefully Ty's quickness is, he can find, he seems to be getting better and better about, using his ability to get by guys and then find.
He's just not going to find as much room in that mid range with
not.
all that length. That's going to be the tough part.
Well, and so if there's anything, when I look at the profile, their offensive profile, that is exploitable, is they do have these 2 freshman guards that they play a bunch, Kriisa and Larson.
Yep.
And they both have pretty high turnover rates. They're both at 22%. So this is not a team that turns the ball over a ton overall. They're kind of middle of the pack in that. But those guys do, and we're very good at forcing turnovers from the opposing team's guards. And so I'm hoping that we can get some easy buckets, get some stops just from forcing turnovers, because this game on both ends is going to be a rebounding nightmare. I think we're gonna get offensive boards like crazy. They're gonna get offensive boards like crazy. It's gonna be frustrating on both sides. So we gotta prevent shots. We just gotta prevent that shot from going up as much as we can. And so winning the turnover battle here, hopefully putting some pressure, hopefully our savvy older guards can put some pressure on their younger guards. Hopefully maybe we get some hype students and rattle them a bit, because they really, they just played a couple big games, but they played those in front of their own fans. Yeah. So we'll see what they can do. They're all good. There's no bad players on this team.
No.
We were talking about the holes on our squad. We don't have, honestly, there's fewer and fewer since any team we've had, but they don't have a hole. Like there's not a hole in this team. When I always look and try to find the weaknesses. It's for them. It's the guards turning the ball over. It's their defensive rebounding. But that's pretty much it. And they don't allow too many threes, but they allow them at a decent percentage, 32%, which is it's above average, but it's not like they're shutting down 3-point shooters. So that WSU can find looks out there, and they're going to have to hit them. And then if they miss them, they're going to have to clean the glass and probably rely less on putbacks and more on kickback outs. So I know some of y'all are going to be frustrated if we put up like 3 threes in an offensive possession. Yes. But that might be our best way to points. Because it
probably is.
When you have multiple 7-footers right in front of your face who got 20 pounds on your 7-footers, like it's tough. So this is tough. They're going to have to defensively force Arizona into some tougher shots, mid-range. They're going to have to play the pick and roll really well. Tabellis is a master in the pick and roll. Like, he wastes no movement. Like,
no, he's really, really good.
He's so good in the pick and roll.
Great hands.
Yep, he catches every pass. Very good touch. Yep. So they're just going to have to shut that down. Like, they're going to have to prevent him from getting the ball in the first place and then force the guard into a tough challenge jumper. That's the only way it's going to work. That's easier said than done. Like, these guys are good. Like, it's going to be hard. But honestly, not that much has to swing for WSU to win. Like, they just need to be a little bit better defensive rebounding than Arizona. They need to force a couple more turnovers than Arizona, and they need to hit it. They need to hit a few more threes in Arizona. Like, that's how it flips. That's how they can overcome some of their deficiencies. And
they're
then hopefully
need a little bit of luck, right?
Yeah, and then hopefully, like you said,
they
need the home whistle.
Yep.
Because we could easily see. Remember when they played Arizona last year, and we had no big guys left when we went to overtime. There was no one left to play, there was no one left. Period. I think like DJ Rodman was like, no, maybe that was the Arizona State game, and DJ Rodman was like running the offense because we had no one left. But yeah, there was like all the bigs fouled out in that game, and it's because Arizona just has so much size, and they just attack the inside. Because they're a great offense, but they don't shoot threes particularly well, and they don't shoot that many. So
I do wonder if we zone them up a little bit to try and entice some threes and try and introduce. I know that honestly, then becomes a rebounding nightmare, but maybe you entice some variance into the game by enticing them into some threes, and maybe they miss a bunch. And
I think we're
because they're not a great shooting team.
You can kind of think that maybe Smith has been deploying the zone in some games that maybe they could get away with it for this upcoming set of games where they're going to play much better athletes.
Yeah.
And just so their guys can get a little more used to it.
And I do wonder if they mess with the rotation a little bit too. If they go, because we talked about this earlier today, you were like, can they play Flowers and Roberts at the same time? Maybe they go zone.
We saw that it was a disaster against USC earlier in the season.
Yeah. Yep. And that was a long time ago. I think the zone is a lot better now, but still, the point remains.
But the problem with when you have small guards at the top of the zone, the looks become so much cleaner for the guard, for those 3-point shots, because you're just not in their face as much, right? Like. Yep. And then you can't get into they have the long arms getting into the passing lane, everything like that. So I don't know, man. Like I'm hyped for it. I'm
gonna drink so much beer. It's gonna be great.
It's just 30% out of 3 times out of 10. KenPom thinks they win this game. That's pretty fucking good. We're playing now they're number 2. It's
Number 2 KenPom.
2 versus 30.
That will be okay. So only KenPom nerds will get this, but it's pretty much guaranteed to be KenPom's number 1 fan match game of the night. So for whatever that's worth.
Oh, look, it's number 2 right now.
Oh,
number 5. It's very close. Yeah. So number 5, Purdue at 49, Michigan is a 73.4 thrill score. And
I call
WSU
bullshit.
is a 72. These games are tipping at the exact same time, too. Sorry, college basketball fans.
I'll bet the thrill score is simply that the Purdue is only favored by slightly less.
I think it's
Michigan.
probably.
There's also a pace element to it.
Yeah,
as well.
I think it's a pace. Purdue is not a good defensive team, but they're great.
Yes.
They're like the best offensive team.
I think that's weighted as well. So I think it tilts towards offense.
Yeah, because so the score for WSU is 74-68 predicted, Arizona, and Purdue is 79-74.
Yeah,
so I bet those few extra points. But yeah, you were almost right, man.
I was close.
You almost
That's
hit
some
it.
bullshit. I'm going to send an email to Ken. Be like, what the fuck? Why does your machine hate us? What are you doing? Bart Torvik has us rated 17. Why do you hate us?
So, by the way, that Bart Torvik, which if you read my post on the the net and what it means and all that, what I've kind of figured out, what I think how Bart system likes us so much is that he's added this component to his ratings he says it's a small but significant change addition to the ratings. It's a metric called game script plus minus, which is derived from play-by-play data and measures a team's average lead / deficit during a game. So, and then he gets rid of it when it's the game is no longer in question. So, which I'm assuming when it hits like a 100% or 99%, something like that, So he says this adds a measure of game control and potential. Oh no, so that's for that. But anyway, so he's got a longer explanation, but you guys can go read that if you want. But so basically, WSU is getting credit in Bart's system because they've led even in the games they've lost. They've either been close or leading most of the game. And
they've even had big leads for long stretches.
Big leads for most of the game, and so that's where they're getting. That's where they're getting that bump. I think because
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because 17. I want to believe that, and he's got Arizona.
Yeah,
he's got Arizona at 5. So Bart gives us 45% chance to win. He's got Arizona by 1, 72-71 as the average score.
Basically a coin flip, man.
Yeah, Bart's got this thing as a coin flip. So fuck yeah, Bart. I hope
we love
Well,
Bart.
I don't
We've
hope you're
always
right
said
because
that.
you still have us losing slightly, but I hope you're more right than KenPom is.
Yeah.
And Net is, So and if we want to talk about also, we haven't even mentioned wins above bubble yet.
Yeah.
This is a big wins above bubble game. You can get
Yes, it is.
almost 3/4 of a win above bubble
Yes.
From this game alone. So, yeah. I mean, if you want to get even more hyped, Bart thinks this thing's a coin flip. So refs help us out. Hit those threes. Turn that ball over. Young Arizona guards. Tubelis just, I don't know, trip a couple times. Coloco, please Deshaun play so someone can box him out. Just 15 minutes from Deshaun would be huge. Hopefully he can see. I've had an injury before.
Yeah.
One thing I am concerned about when I got hit in the eye with a baseball when I was in high school. I had to sit almost completely still. I wasn't supposed to do any sudden movements for an entire week.
That pressure is so bad.
Yeah. So I wonder if, he kind of got behind on his conditioning a little bit too.
I would assume so.
Yeah.
I would assume so. I guess it kind of depends on what the injury is.
Yeah.
It's one thing to get hit in the face with a baseball or punched in the eye or whatever. it's maybe a different thing if he got scratched.
Yeah.
So hopefully maybe, I mean, I don't know which is worse long-term, but hopefully it's something that allowed him to keep, working out and staying in shape. And I don't know, man, just get him some sunglasses, goggles or something, and, let him go out there and just kind of hack some people and,
Dude, hell yeah. Horace Grant style.
Eat up some minutes, man. Eat up
Horace
some minutes.
Grant, Bill Cartwright.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. So, yeah.
If you can hit a couple of 15-footers like Horace Grant, that'd be great too.
Yeah. Bring that.
Yeah. Wow, we are an hour in. We haven't even talked.
Yes, we are.
Then we have, so after that, Arizona State. That's a trap game.
Yeah.
100%. Arizona State has shown that they can be pesky recently.
Yes.
Obviously, it was a bit of a fluky win over them the first time. You gotta say
a little bit. Yep.
You don't win many games.
Probably don't expect that again.
When you're at like 0.74 points per possession that WSU was at and win by 22, you don't see that again. I expect this to still be a defensive game. It's two teams that are definitely much better defensively than they are offensively. Arizona State, pretty solid defensive team, as are most fucking Pac-12 teams. This is a defensive conference this year, and there's a lot of teams that are real bad offensively and good defensively.
Yep.
But they've the last few games they beat UCLA. They challenged Arizona for a half. They took USC down to the wire. So I don't expect WSU to run away with this game. I expect them to win, but there could be some letdown because of how massive the Thursday game is. So there's some worry there. And if you lose that Thursday game, you better fucking win this game.
That's honestly, I mean, I don't want to say the Arizona State game doesn't matter if we beat Arizona. I mean, it does, but also like we get way, way more out of a win over Arizona than we would be penalized for a loss to ASU. So
exactly.
But winning them both is better. So let's try and do that.
Yep. So yeah, and then there's 3 huge games, which we'll talk about next week, which we'll have to record. Or actually, maybe we should talk about the Oregon game, because we're probably not going to record before that.
Good God. We're at 105, man.
Okay. We might have to either not preview that game, or we will record earlier.
Maybe we'll record on Sunday. I think that's probably more
if WSU beats Arizona on Thursday, we might record a podcast on Thursday night. Let's be honest.
We might. That is true.
So, yeah. Let's take a break, then we'll talk about women's hoops.
All right. And we're back.
All right, Jeff, before we talk about the WSU women's hoops team, who had a very nice split this weekend, kept on track, why don't you tell me what you're drinking? You might have just switched to another beer because I heard a crack.
I did. We're on to the second one now. Took me an hour to drink that other one. All right, so I had, to start with, I had the 7th anniversary Hoppy Pilsner from Holy Mountain, which is an absolutely, positively delicious Pilsner. I do love me some Hoppy Pilsners. This is clean and refreshing, but also with that, that hoppy flavor. I'm sure you've had it, and I'm sure you have thoughts about it. I thought it was delicious and loved it, and now I'm wishing I would have bought more than one.
It's very good. I went and picked one of those up, when they had all their anniversary beers. They had an anniversary double IPA as well. I can't believe they've been around for 7 years. Holy Mountain, as I said before, kind of truly was like a game changer in the Seattle beer scene, Northwest.
Yep.
Really the Oregon, the entire state. Just kind of raised the standard. So it's it's good. Yeah, it's cool. And I enjoyed that beer as well. They produce some great lagers.
Yes, they do. Yeah, what are you drinking, man?
So, because we need to hit a lot of threes this weekend, I said I'm drinking a beer from Three Sons Brewing out of Florida, which was like out of Dania Beach, Florida, which is one of those breweries out of Florida that loves to make a lot of like thick and very adjunct heavy beers. This one is not super, big. It's called Excuse My French Toast. Oh, I messed up the name on Twitter. I said Pardon My French Toast, whatever. It's called Excuse My French Toast.
It should have been Pardon My French Toast. Let's be real.
I know. Exactly.
It should have been.
It's a brown ale, 7%, so kind of a bigger brown ale. French toast inspired ale with natural flavors. Definitely maple syrup on the nose on here. Maple syrup in the, a little bit of maple, not overwhelming like with like double stack from Great Notion or anything like that, but real solid drinker. The maple goes well. It's kind of a darker brown ale. Maple goes well with it. I think I'm not sure what else they put in there. I wouldn't say it tastes like French toast. It doesn't really. I don't. There's maybe a little bit hint of like cinnamon in there, but it's tasty and it's easy to drink. And I've had some big beers recently, so I dialed it back just a notch, but still had some absurdity to it. So Three Sons. Excuse my French toast. Fuck. So they hit some threes this weekend, Cougs. We would love some threes. So let's talk about women's hoops. So they according to ESPN are on the right side of the bubble right now. They're in the last four in. So a few slots ahead of where the men's are. But they went out. They had a big weekend. What I was told, actually by WSU, is reminded, I guess, is that the women selection committee does not use the quadrant system,
which is probably smart because
probably better.
Is kind of silly.
I think any system that has like such demarcations is kind of stupid. Like, 70,
completely arbitrary, right?
You beat number 76. That doesn't matter. Oh, you beat number 75. Ooh, hello.
Ooh, yeah. Let's
which
bring
is
that.
I always hated that with RPI too, where they're like top 50 wins. It's like, okay, so top 52 wins aren't good. I don't know.
I know. Well, and then the fact that the demarcations are also so arbitrary, right? Like, so you look at the quad one wins. It's okay. Teams that you play at home that are ranked 1 through 30. Teams that you play at neutral sites that are 1 through 50, and then teams that you play on the road that are 1 through 75. And it's like, okay, you clearly just made those numbers up. Like, there's
because they're pretty similar to what Ken Palm does for A and B games.
Is he?
Yeah,
I don't remember where his
is not a number. His is an efficiency margin. So sometimes it'll stretch out farther to like Stanford on the road 90 is a B game, but
I don't know, man.
I mean,
it seems like the idea that playing the number 30 team at home is the equivalent of beating the number 75 team on the road. It seems to me a little absurd.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're looking at the predictive values, so WSU is playing the number 32 team on the road, and they're predicted to lose by 3 points. And then they play the number 51 team at home, and they're predicted to win by 5 points. They're probably just trying to find where that, like, because it's typically a 6-point difference. Like, so look at Oregon. The home game against Oregon, they're predicted to win by 5. The road game predicted to lose by 1. So it's usually like about a 6-point difference. So 3 points for you, 3 points less for them if you're at home. So I'm guessing they were trying to hit that kind of predicted margin, like wherever the 6 point lands. But you're also saying that the number 31 team beating the number 31 team on the road is the same as beating the number 75 team on the road, which is, I think, the stupidest thing about these demarcations. But anyways, we're talking about the women's team where they don't use these.
No.
But these were they went on the road to play 2 top 40 net teams. The women's selection committee does use net. Top 40 net teams. Came out and got a huge win over Colorado on Friday. Charlize finally was able to knock down shots as we kind of expect her to do. She's really struggled with her shot this year. But she came out and dropped 30. Huge game. 4 of 10 from 3, 9 of 18 overall, 8 of 10 from the line, 30 points, huge. And then you had Johanna Tedder get 14 points on 4 of 10 shooting, 4 of 8 from 3. So their top 2 scorers really carried the day. And they just played what they've done all season, played great defense, and then squeezed out a win. And so it's just, the biggest thing for me is it was fun to see Charlize carry them to a win again like she did multiple times last year in a big game.
Yeah, we were wondering if she was healthy, right? Like, we were kind of like, is something wrong? Didn't look like it, which is great. That's huge. It's fantastic news. And one of the things we know about this team is that they're not quite as as reliant on Charlize as they were a year ago, which is great. But also, okay, give me the Charlize from last year plus the improvements that other people have made, and now you're really cooking. So it's very exciting to see Charlize break out a little bit. She's played a ton of basketball over the last year, both with us and with the national team in New Zealand. And so, she's got a lot of minutes on her legs right now, and I wonder if maybe, she was a little tired. If she is coming around on this, that is absolutely huge and absolutely massive, especially since, as you said, they're already on the right side of the bubble. They don't need to make any kind of dramatic push, maybe in the same way the men do, which is great.
Yeah. And so they already have, adding Colorado, they have that win on the road. They have Gonzaga on the road. USC on the road, all impressive, wins that'll ultimately, I think, be impressive to the committee. And so, but they have, and then they came at then 2 days later play, not even 2 days later, have to travel to Utah. This mountain trip is always going to be hard. You're playing both games at elevation. Utah is actually good this year. They're very good. They were top 20 in net before. I think they dipped a little bit, but Utah is just from watching that game, they have a lot of shooters, very good offensive team. Bella got into foul trouble early. She's a very important defensive player for the Cougs. So she ended up only playing 22 minutes total. So they definitely they went deeper into the bench in this game than they normally do. And but you still had Yo playing 40 and Charlize playing 38. Ula was actually in foul trouble in this game too, and ended up fouling out. So she only played 29 after playing 40 minutes against Colorado. So, foul trouble has definitely hurt them. And then you get to the fourth quarter, and they start the fourth down 19. But they made a hell of a run at it. They got it down to 5 with about 2 minutes left, and then just couldn't finish the deal. They got it down to 6 with 7, but it should have been 5, by the way, because Krista Ledger-Walker definitely hit a 3. She had her foot on the men's line, not the women's line, and so they messed that up. It's funny thing is they reviewed the play right after for a really long time, a tip out of bounds. That went for WSU, and they didn't bother to also review the 3, so that if WSU would have came out and got a quick 3 right after that, that would have been quite a big deal. But they ultimately didn't matter, except in net, every point matters. So that was a bummer loss. They just, they've been a hell of a comeback team. They came back from, I think, 9 down against Colorado, but the 19-point fourth quarter deficit maybe was finally the comeback with that was too much. So yeah, they're in a good place now, though, getting the split. And now they have 3 games this week, Oregon, and the toughest one being Oregon on Wednesday. Oregon is, I believe, 10th in net, 9th or 10th. So that's a chance for another, or they're 13th right now. So that's a chance for another big resume win. And then playing UCLA and USC, UCLA in particular, UCLA is another bubble team. Beating them would be huge. And then USC, potentially another bubble team too, beating them would be a big deal. So 3 big games for them. Again, this weekend, if you're in town to watch the men, you can watch the women's games too. Like, just go to the women's games too. Yeah. Pack it out. Like,
easy peasy. And this is the kickoff of an actual 5-game homestand. So this is their
huge,
chance.
Huge homestand.
Huge homestand, chance to make a bunch of hay. You got to win those games at home. So, yeah, big deal. Big deal.
Yeah, and hopefully that Colorado game was a sign of things to come from Charlize, because if Charlize can get back to the Charlize that we know, they are tough. They are tough to. They can beat almost anyone besides Stanford, but like almost anyone.
Yeah.
Stanford's
so it's kind of a different deal.
Because Charlize really is just that special player that can carry you to wins. And I think, Oregon is a chance for her to do that again. If they can get Oregon, they're going to be pretty solidly in with a bunch of games. And then the next week they have a chance with Arizona as well. And then Arizona State, another bubble team. So this is like you're playing nothing but bubble teams or big games down the stretch. Oregon, I think, because they're high in net, but they don't have the wins quite as much. So they're probably not quite as solidly in. So knocking off some of these teams that might be compared to you are huge, is going to be huge. So hopefully we can see, by the time you're listening to this, they're probably already playing. They play Oregon at noon on Wednesday. So thanks for that.
Yeah. Thanks, Pac-12.
Then we have to take a long lunch for that one. So yeah. I mean, when we only have 2 sports to talk about, I guess that's fine, Hopefully we have a big fucking weekend in Pullman, 3 women's games, 2 men's games, Wednesday and Thursday being the really, really big games. And then on the weekend, just games that you'd love to see them take care of business at home for both teams. It could just be super fun. Again, I'm super bummed that I won't be there. Super jealous of all y'all that will be there. Be loud, and support the team. I do think, at least on the Friday game, we'll see some nice attendance for the women because of the, maybe the people that came for the Saturday men's game. So hopefully that can put them over the top against UCLA, who they really pushed for 3/4 of the game, and then UCLA hit a bunch of threes in the fourth quarter at Poly, and then came away with the win. So winning that game would be huge. Winning Oregon would be huge. And then sweeping USC would be huge too. So I'd just love to have a great weekend of basketball in Pullman with our 2 teams that are both fighting for NCAA tournament berths. Probably if you combine, like if you're talking about both teams at the same time, one of the biggest basketball weekends ever in Pullman. Yeah. So hopefully
for sure
we can have some fun and win some games and be merry.
Yes.
All right. So if you like us so much, you might as well subscribe. And you might as well rate us 5 stars and leave us a comment about why you like us. So give us that 5-star rating. We love that 5-star rating. We love those subscribers. That makes us look good. That pushes us up the ratings, the subscribers. That pushes us up the list. If someone's searching for a sports podcast, they're searching for a Coug podcast, that puts us towards the top of the list. So that helps us out. If you want to follow us on Twitter, I'm at the Craig Powers. Jeff is at Pod versus Everyone. I am at Craig W. Powers on Instagram. I was hoping to have filled it with a bunch of pictures in Pullman this weekend, but I won't. But, we got my bachelor party coming up in Pullman in just a few short weeks.
We got big plans.
Big plans for that. So that's going to be fun. So you'll definitely want to follow me on Instagram for that debauchery. And then, if you have an email questions, we definitely got some email questions, but I got to go help my fiance with the baby, so we're not going to take those tonight. Life comes at you fast when you add that second.
Yeah, that's how.
But Jeff, with all my fucking heart, I will say not just go Cougs this time, but go fucking Cougs.
Go fucking Cougs, Craig. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Get vaccinated.
Got to if you want to watch that game.